Part 5. The final choice. The temple was quiet now, the echoes of power slowly fading into the background. Aravia stood in the center, her eyes still locked on Ethan. His transformation was undeniable, his body glowing faintly with the energy from the seal. It was as if the very air around him had changed, vibrating with the energy of the universe itself. And yet, despite the incredible power now coursing through him, a shadow of doubt lingered in Aravia's heart. Ethan turned toward her, his expression calm and serene, but there was something else. There was a hint of something deeper, something that made Aravia uneasy. He had changed. He was no longer the man who had been so curious, so driven by his need to understand. He was something else now, something that transcended humanity itself. "We're ready," Ethan said softly, his voice carrying a quiet certainty. "The future is here, Aravia. Humanity is no longer bound by the chains of its past. The seal has shown me what we are capable of. Together, we can shape the galaxy into something better." Aravia didn't reply immediately. She had heard the same words before. Humanity was ready to evolve, to break free from its limitations. But what did that really mean? What was the price of this power that Ethan had unlocked? Could they truly control it, or would it control them? "I've been thinking, Ethan," Aravia said finally, her voice steady, though her mind was a whirlwind. "I understand your belief that humanity can evolve, that we can break free from our past mistakes. But the power you've unlocked, it's more than just a tool. It's a force. And forces like that can consume those who try to wield them." Ethan looked at her with a soft smile, his eyes glowing brighter than before. "I've thought about that too, Aravia. I know the risks. But this is different. I've seen what humanity can become. We don't have to repeat the mistakes of the past. We don't have to be limited by fear and division. The seal has given us the knowledge and the strength to move beyond that." His words were full of confidence, of hope. But Aravia's instincts told her something else. She had seen power before seeing what it could do to those who thought they could control it. The Zephyrians were powerful, yes, but even they had learned the hard way that no one was invincible, no matter how strong they seemed. "I believe in humanity's potential, Ethan," Aravia said slowly. "But the power you've gained, it's not just knowledge or strength. It's the ability to change reality itself. And that kind of power is dangerous. No one can predict what might happen when something like that is unleashed. Not even you." Ethan's smile faltered for a brief moment, but it returned just as quickly. "I understand your concern, Aravia. But this power, it's not about domination. It's about freedom. Freedom to evolve, to create a better world for all of us. We don't have to fight anymore. We don't have to fear what's next. We control our destiny now." His confidence was unwavering, and yet Aravia couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She had watched him grow over the past few days, seen the transformation in him. And now, standing before him, she realized something. Ethan had changed, yes, but so had his perception of what humanity could be. He no longer saw the world through the same lens he once had. The seal had given him a vision of a perfect future, but at what cost? Was this the future humanity truly wanted, or was it a future born of one man's dream? "I've seen what you've become," Aravia said quietly, her voice filled with a mix of admiration and fear. "You're not the same person, Ethan. The seal has changed you. And I'm not sure that's a good thing." Ethan's gaze softened, but there was a glint in his eyes that made Aravia hesitate. "I haven't changed, Aravia. I've become who I was always meant to be. I'm no longer bound by the limitations of humanity. I see things clearly now. I understand what we're capable of. And I know what we must do." Aravia took a step back, her heart pounding in her chest. She had trusted Ethan. She had believed in his vision. But now, standing in the temple with the weight of the seals, power looming over them, she wasn't so sure. The future he saw, a future without war, without suffering, sounded perfect. But perfection came with a price. And Aravia wasn't sure if humanity was ready to pay it. "I want to believe you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I want to believe that humanity can break free from its past. But the way you speak, it sounds like you think you have all the answers." that you alone can shape the future. But what about the rest of humanity? What about the choices they should make? Ethan was silent for a long moment, his eyes studying her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm but firm. I understand your concern, but the choices they make now, Aravia, they don't matter. The future is already set. The seal has shown me what comes next. I will guide humanity to a new world, a world where there is no suffering, no pain, no fear. I will make sure of it. A chill ran down Aravia's spine. Ethan was no longer speaking as the man she had met days ago. He was speaking as if he were certain, as if the fate of the galaxy rested solely in his hands. She could see the confidence in his eyes, but she could also see something else, something darker, something that made her question if he still understood what it meant to be human. No one should have that kind of power, Aravia said, her voice shaking. No one should have the right to decide what the future holds for everyone else. Ethan's expression hardened, and for the first time Aravia saw something almost dangerous in him. The future is ours to control, Aravia. And if you can't see that, then maybe you're not ready for what's coming. Humanity has always been held back by its own weaknesses, its own fears. But no more. I will give them the future they deserve. The words stung, but Aravia didn't back down. She had been trained to fight, to resist, and this was no different. The power of the seal had transformed Ethan, but it hadn't transformed her. She still believed in choice, in the freedom to shape one's own destiny. Ethan had chosen his path, but she wasn't sure it was the right one. Ethan, listen to me, Aravia said, her voice steady. This isn't just about what you want. This is about all of us, every human, every living being. You're talking about reshaping the universe, but what happens if you're wrong? What happens if this power destroys what you're trying to save? For a long moment, Ethan was silent, his eyes searching hers. Then, with a deep breath, he spoke. I can't go back now, Aravia. I've seen what humanity can become. I've seen the future, and I can't turn away from it. I won't. Aravia's heart sank. She had known this would come to a choices moment, this confrontation. The seal had given Ethan power, but it had also given him a vision of the future. And now, he was willing to risk everything to make that vision a reality. But Aravia could not follow him. She could not stand by and watch as one person decided the fate of everyone else. The power to change the galaxy wasn't his to wield alone. It belonged to everyone, to every living being, as to every soul who had the right to choose their own future. I can't follow you down this path, Aravia said softly. I can't stand by and watch you become something else, something more dangerous than even the Zephyrions. Ethan's expression faltered for a moment, and for the first time Aravia saw doubt flicker in his eyes. But it was gone just as quickly as it appeared. Then I guess this is where we part ways, he said quietly, his voice filled with sadness, but no regret. I can't change what I've become, but I hope you'll see in time that I was right. With that, Ethan turned, and in a flash of light he was gone. Aravia stood alone in the temple, the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She had chosen humanity's future, not as a single person's vision, but as something that belonged to everyone. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing for sure. Ethan had been right about one thing. The future was theirs to shape, together, and that was the choice she had made. On the distant alien world of Zathor, Zathori were known for their advanced technology, their grace in battle, and their cold, logical minds. They had conquered countless planets, and their empire stretched across many galaxies. However, their minds were clouded by one thing: the belief that they were the superior species in the universe. Zara, a young Zathori scout, was no exception. She was trained to observe and learn about other species, often from a distance. Her race saw other creatures as nothing more than obstacles or resources to be used, and this included humanity. The Zathori had monitored Earth for centuries and concluded that humans were weak, chaotic, and primitive, nothing to fear. But that was before Zara began her secret mission. It started with a strange signal, something different from the usual radio waves and transmissions the Zathori picked up from Earth. The signal wasn't complex. but it was powerful, unusual, and seemed to be coming from one individual, a human. It was clear that someone on Earth had made a breakthrough of some kind, but no one could figure out what it was. Zara, eager for knowledge, decided to investigate it personally. She had been trained to be invisible to her targets. As a scout, Zara had learned how to blend into her surroundings, how to watch without being seen. She wasn't just observing the humans from a distance. She was studying them, learning everything she could. And that's how she first noticed Ethan Cross. He was a man unlike the others. She had seen on Earth, while most humans were focused on their petty wars and small squabbles, Ethan lived in a remote part of the world, far away from the noise and conflict of cities. He lived alone, deep in the mountains. Zara had observed him for several weeks. He had an air of mystery about him, something that set him apart. Unlike most humans, he didn't seem to be afraid of the world around him. He was calm, calculated, and seemed to always be ready for whatever came his way. Zara watched him one evening from a hidden perch high above his cabin. She had been tracking his movements for days, and she had learned his habits. Ethan spent most of his time studying strange pieces of technology that seemed to come from a long-forgotten time. There were books scattered around his cabin, old, ancient texts that Zara didn't recognize. He was no ordinary human. She couldn't help but wonder why he was so different. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. Zara had been watching Ethan from the shadows. As usual, when a group of armed strangers appeared near his cabin, they were not human. These beings, with their strange, grotesque bodies and sharp claw-like features, were from a race known as the Trogrions, vicious invaders who had long been a threat to any planet they set their sights on. Zara had seen their kind before. They were ruthless, bloodthirsty, and extremely dangerous. She was surprised to see them on Earth. The Trogrians had no interest in Earth until now. Zara wondered why they had chosen this planet to attack, but she was even more surprised by Ethan's reaction. Instead of running, Ethan stood tall. His eyes narrowed as he spotted the Trogrians approaching. Zara could feel the tension in the air as she watched from her hiding spot. The humans she had studied were known for their fear, their desperation to escape, but this man was different. There was no panic in his eyes-only determination. He didn't wait for them to reach him. Instead, he moved quickly, using the environment to his advantage. Zara's eyes widened in disbelief as Ethan began to fight back. He didn't have the advanced weapons or technology that the Zethri possessed, but he had something else. He had his mind. Zara watched as Ethan used the terrain to his advantage, creating traps and distractions, fighting with the same intensity that he had when he faced his own kind. It was like nothing Zara had ever seen. One of the Trogrians lunged at him with a sharp blade. But Ethan sidestepped, grabbing the creature's arm and twisting it with a fluid motion that looked effortless. Zara was stunned. How could a human, with their fragile body, do something like that? And yet there he was, taking down enemies with raw skill and instinct, in the span of a few minutes. Ethan had taken down 2 of the Trogrians. The remaining invaders hesitated, clearly unsure of how to handle a human who fought like this. They were ruthless, but even they seemed to realize that they might be in over their heads. For the first time, Zara felt something she had never experienced before. Respect. The Trogrians were no match for Ethan's ingenuity and speed. In a final move, Ethan triggered a series of explosions he had set up earlier, sending the remaining invaders fleeing in panic. He stood alone, panting but victorious. Zara was still hidden, watching in awe as Ethan surveyed the wreckage. His calm demeanor never wavered, as if he had known all along that he would win. Zara had never seen a human act this way before. Her training told her that humans were weak. But what she had just witnessed shattered that belief. She was no longer simply curious about him. She was intrigued. Ethan wasn't just a human. He was something else entirely. A human capable of surviving against impossible odds. A human who could outsmart and outfight even the deadliest of enemies. And she wanted to know how. She needed to know more. For the first time, Zara made a decision. She would follow him. Zara's heart raced as she made her way closer to Ethan's cabin. She was skilled at blending in, and her Zethri technology ensured that she remained unseen. But as she watched Ethan from the shadows, she couldn't shake the feeling that something more was at play here. There was something about him, something that terrified her. Her mission was simple: observe and report. But now, it had become something far more complicated. Ethan Cross had shown her a side of humanity that the Zethri had never considered a side that could be dangerous. His strength, his resolve, and his cleverness. Zara realized she had made a mistake. Humans were not weak. They were capable of much more than anyone could have imagined. As the night grew darker, Zara made her way into the woods, tracking Ethan's every move. She had to know what else he was hiding and how deep this human power went. What she had witnessed was only the beginning. And she couldn't help but wonder what other surprises Ethan Cross had in store. Zara had never been this close to a human before. She had spent years studying them from afar, observing their behaviors, their weaknesses, and their patterns. But now, as she followed Ethan Cross through the dense forest, she felt both a sense of curiosity and unease. What she had witnessed earlier, the way he had taken down the Trogrians without hesitation, had completely upended everything she had been taught about humanity. She stayed hidden, her Zathri cloaking technology making her invisible to Ethan's eyes. Zara was careful not to make a sound as she trailed behind him, her heart racing with anticipation. The quiet man she had watched for weeks now seemed to be on a mission of his own. He moved with purpose, not like someone who had just fought off invaders, but like a seasoned warrior, always aware of his surroundings. Prepared for whatever came next, Ethan made his way to a small clearing where he paused. Zara crouched low, watching from the shadows. She saw him set down a small, battered pack and begin to unpack tools and strange devices. His hands moved quickly, methodically, as though he had done this many times before. There was no sign of fatigue or fear in his movements, only focus and precision. Zara couldn't help but be impressed. She had assumed that humans were simply lucky in their survival. But now she was starting to think there was something more to them than that. She had never seen a species so willing to push beyond their limits, to adapt and fight even when the odds were stacked against them. As she continued to observe him, Zara noticed something else. Ethan was not alone. He was talking to someone, or rather, to something. A small, mechanical creature scuttled out from behind a nearby tree. It looked like a robot, but far more advanced than any human technology Zara had seen. The creature was humanoid in shape. With sleek silver limbs and a glowing blue core at its center, Ethan spoke in a calm, quiet voice. "How are we looking, Sprocket?" Zara blinked in confusion. Sprocket. Was this machine his companion? She had never seen a human with such an advanced piece of technology. The machine beeped, its small mechanical head swiveling as it analyzed the surroundings. It appeared to be scanning for something. Zara couldn't tell what it was. "I'm picking up some readings," Ethan muttered, his eyes narrowing. But no signs of activity yet. Zara's mind raced. Could this be part of the secret humanity had been hiding all along? She had known about their basic technology, their weapons, and their early attempts at space travel. But this was different. This was something entirely new, something the Zathri had never encountered before. As Ethan packed up his equipment, Zara made the decision to move closer. She was so focused on him and his mysterious robot that she almost forgot to stay hidden. Her foot stepped on a twig, and the sound echoed in the stillness of the forest. Ethan froze. His eyes scanned the area, his hand reaching for the weapon strapped to his side. Zara's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't been detected, but he was aware of something was off. Sprocket chirped softly, its robotic eyes flashing as it turned toward the sound. Ethan's eyes followed, and for a moment, Zara thought he might spot her. But then, something strange happened. He didn't move toward the noise. Instead, he simply gave a short, quiet command. "Stay sharp," Ethan said softly. More to himself than to the machine, the two of them continued on. Completely unaware of Zara's presence, Zara let out a silent breath she didn't realize she had been holding. She had never been so close to a human before, and it was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. Ethan Cross wasn't like the humans the Zethri had studied. He wasn't afraid, and he wasn't predictable. There was something in him that made him different, a strength, a calmness that she couldn't quite understand. It was as if he had seen things, done things that she could never imagine. She followed him deeper into the woods, careful to keep her distance, but never letting him out of her sight. Ethan's movements were deliberate, his every step measured, as though he was leading them on a journey only he understood. Zara couldn't figure out where he was going or what he was doing. After what felt like hours, they arrived at a small, secluded valley. Ethan stopped at the edge of a rock formation and turned to Sprocket. "Set up the sensor array," he ordered, his voice quiet but firm. The robot beeped in acknowledgement, scuttling to a small patch of ground where it began to deploy a series of strange devices. Zara watched with growing curiosity. She had never seen anything like this technology before. It wasn't just advanced, it was alien in design. Ethan pulled a small tablet from his pack and began to tap at the screen, his face lit by the soft glow. Zara watched closely, wondering what he was doing. Was he trying to communicate with something? Or perhaps searching for something? She needed to know more. Before she could make a move, something caught her eye. A movement in the distance, faint, but distinct. Zara narrowed her eyes, instinctively shifting into a more defensive posture. A figure appeared on the horizon, emerging from the trees. It wasn't a human. Zara could see the silhouette of another alien creature, tall and broad, with the same jagged features of the Trogrians. But this one was different. It didn't have the same markings or the same color. It was sleek, its body covered in strange armor that shimmered in the low light. Zara instinctively reached for the small weapon at her side. But something stopped her. The alien seemed to be approaching Ethan. Slowly. Cautiously, as though it was unsure of his presence. Ethan, however, didn't seem surprised at all. He looked up from his tablet, his eyes narrowing at the figure in the distance. "Looks like we've got company," he muttered under his breath. He wasn't alarmed. He didn't even seem to be worried. Zara, however, felt her heart race. Who was this alien? Why was it here? And why was Ethan so calm about it? The alien stopped at the edge of the clearing, staring at Ethan with glowing yellow eyes. Its mouth opened, but Zara couldn't hear any sound. She watched intently, waiting for the next move. Would Ethan fight? Would he run? But instead of drawing a weapon or calling for backup, Ethan stood up slowly, his gaze locked with the alien's. "Are you lost?" Ethan asked in a calm voice. There was no fear, no panic. Just a quiet curiosity. The alien hesitated, as though it was surprised by Ethan's lack of fear. It seemed to assess him, then finally spoke in a low, guttural voice. "I seek something," it said. "Something important." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And what would that be?" The alien's eyes flickered briefly as it spoke again. "The artifact. You know it exists." Zara's heart skipped. The artifact? What was this alien talking about? What was so important that it had sent a creature like this all the way here? Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked at the creature for a moment, its expression unreadable. "I might know what you're looking for," he finally said, "but you're not going to find it here." The alien's gaze hardened. "You don't understand, human. The artifact will change everything. It must be found." Ethan stood still, his gaze unwavering. "If it's as important as you say it is, then maybe it's time we talked." Zara's eyes widened as she realized what was happening. This was no ordinary encounter. Ethan wasn't just surviving. He was playing the game, and he was playing it better than anyone could have imagined. The alien creature stood in the clearing, its yellow eyes glowing faintly in the dusk light. Ethan did not flinch. His calm demeanor was unshaken, as if he had been expecting this encounter all along. Zara, hidden in the shadows, couldn't help but feel a growing sense of awe. She had thought humanity to be a primitive species, easily overpowered and easily ignored by the greater powers in the galaxy. But now, she was starting to realize that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had ever given them credit for. The alien spoke again, its voice rough and heavy. "You have it. I know you do. The artifact. I can sense it." Ethan didn't move. His eyes remained locked on the alien, but his voice was calm, controlled. If you're looking for an artifact, then you're wasting your time. I don't have it. And if I did, you wouldn't be the one to find it." The alien growled low in its throat, the sound chilling the air around them. Its long clawed fingers twitched, but it didn't attack. Instead, it seemed to weigh Ethan's words, as if considering them. "You humans don't understand what you're dealing with. The artifact has the power to change everything. It's not just a tool. It's a weapon. The power to reshape worlds." Zara's mind raced. The artifact. She had heard whispers of such things in her studies, ancient artifacts that could shape the fate of entire civilizations. But the Zathri had never believed humans had anything like that. The idea that such a powerful object might be in their hands was unsettling. Ethan crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. "Maybe so. But if it's as dangerous as you say, then maybe it's better off staying hidden. You've already caused enough trouble by coming here. You're not getting any closer to it." The alien hesitated, its eyes narrowing. "You think you can stop me? You are nothing but a weak human." Ethan's expression remained calm, his voice still steady. "Maybe I'm weak, but I'm not the only human you'll have to deal with." Zara, still watching from her hidden position, was beginning to realize the full extent of the situation. Ethan wasn't just protecting something, he was protecting Earth. He wasn't the only human who had power. Humans in general had an ability to fight back, to stand up when pushed into a corner. It was their unyielding will, their strength of spirit, that set them apart from any other species Zara had encountered. The alien seemed to sense that Ethan was not easily intimidated. It took a step back, its sharp gaze still fixed on him. "I will return," it said, its voice cold and threatening. "And when I do, I will have the artifact, and I will not be merciful." With that, the creature turned and melted into the shadows. Disappearing as quickly as it had come, Ethan waited for a few moments, ensuring the alien was truly gone before he relaxed. His body language shifted, and he began to gather his gear, packing up his equipment with practiced efficiency. Sprocket, the small robotic companion, was already moving to assist him, scurrying around and tidying up. Zara watched in silence, her mind swirling with questions. Who was this alien? What was this artifact it had spoken of? And why was Ethan so certain it wasn't something to be easily handled? Ethan spoke softly to Sprocket, almost as if the robot could sense his thoughts. "It's only a matter of time before others start coming for it. We'll need to be ready." Zara couldn't help herself any longer. She had been watching from the shadows for too long, her curiosity eating at her. She moved silently through the trees, her cloaking technology making her invisible to Ethan. She had to know more. She had to understand why this human, out of all humans, seemed to hold such power. She stepped closer, just enough to hear his conversation with Sprocket. "What are we going to do?" Sprocket asked, its mechanical voice soft but clear. Ethan sighed, looking out over the valley. "We need to find the artifact before anyone else does. It's not just an object, it's a key to something much bigger. If we let it fall into the wrong hands..." He trailed off, and for the first time, Zara saw a flicker of concern in his eyes. Sprocket didn't respond immediately. Instead, it simply continued to scan the area, its sensors working at full capacity. Ethan's gaze softened, and he turned to the robot. "We can't let this get out of control, Sprocket. If the wrong people find out about it, well, there won't be anything left of Earth or any of the other worlds." Sarah was stunned. There was more to this than she had initially realized. Ethan wasn't just a survivor. He was part of something much bigger, and he had been guarding it all along. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft click behind her. Zara froze, her heart racing. Someone had spotted her. She quickly glanced over her shoulder, and to her shock, it wasn't Ethan. A figure emerged from the trees, this time a woman, with a sharp, determined look in her eyes. She was wearing a dark, tactical suit. Clearly prepared for something dangerous, Zara's first instinct was to hide. But something about the woman's presence felt familiar. She didn't seem like a threat, but rather like someone who had a purpose. And it was clear that she knew about the artifact as well. The woman stepped forward, her voice low and calm. "I know you're there, Zara." Zara's eyes widened. How did she know her name? The woman smiled softly, as though she had expected Zara's surprise. I'm here to help, but we need to talk. It's about the artifact. Zara stepped out of the shadows, cautiously lowering her cloaking device. She had never met this human before, but something told her that the woman was not an ordinary person. Who are you? Zara asked, her voice steady but full of curiosity. The woman nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving Zara's. My name is Lena Quinn, and if you're here to find the artifact, then you're already in over your head. Zara narrowed her eyes, trying to make sense of the situation. What do you mean? Lena's gaze darkened. There's a reason the artifact is hidden, and if you think you can control it, you're wrong. It's a power that no one, not even humans, can truly understand. It's dangerous, and if you want to protect your world, you'll need to join us. Zara was silent for a long moment, processing the information. Everything she had thought she knew about humanity was slowly slipping away. These humans were more than just survivors. They were a force, united in their determination, and they had kept their true potential hidden for a reason. They had a deep, untapped power that could change the fate of the entire galaxy. Finally, Zara spoke, her voice filled with a new understanding. Then what do we do? Lena smiled, a hint of hope in her eyes. We find the artifact, and we make sure no one else can ever get their hands on it. The tension in the air was palpable as Zara and Lena stood face to face. The wind rustled through the trees around them, carrying with it a sense of urgency. The artifact, whatever it was, had become the center of everything. Zara could no longer ignore the fact that the object she had been sent to observe was not just a piece of technology or ancient history. It was something far more powerful, far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Lena's eyes were steady, her voice calm, but filled with determination. We don't have much time. If the others catch wind of this, we're all in trouble. Zara nodded slowly, absorbing the gravity of her words. She had been tracking Ethan for weeks, convinced that the humans were insignificant, that their world was nothing more than a footnote in the grand story of the universe. But now, after seeing Ethan's strength and Lena's quiet authority, Zara realized how wrong she had been. The others? Zara asked, her voice cautious. Who are you talking about? Lena's gaze darkened. The people who want the artifact, the ones who would use it to destroy everything. They're not just after power, they're after control. If they get their hands on it, there won't be any stopping them. Zara took a deep breath, considering the weight of Lena's words. This was bigger than just Ethan and his mysterious survival tactics. This was a battle for something far more important than any single human. It was a fight for the future of Earth and, possibly, the entire galaxy. How do we stop them? Zara asked, her tone resolute. For the first time, she felt a shift in herself, a growing desire to protect rather than observe, to act rather than wait. Lena's eyes softened slightly, though the edge of caution never left her. We need to find the artifact before they do. But it's not going to be easy. They have resources, people everywhere, and they're already moving toward her. Zara's mind raced. She had seen the way the Trogrians moved through the galaxies, relentless and with a single-minded focus. If a species like that had set its sights on the artifact, Zara could only imagine the devastation they would bring to Earth. We can't do this alone, Zara said, her voice carrying a new determination. You need help. I can help. Lena studied her carefully, as though measuring whether Zara's offer was genuine. After a long pause, she spoke. We don't have time to argue. The artifact is somewhere close, but we don't know exactly where. We've been getting signals, hints, but nothing clear. We need to find it first. Zara nodded. She had come here to study humanity, to understand why they were different from the other species in the galaxy. Now, she realized, she had something else to protect, something much bigger than her original mission. As they made their way toward Ethan, who was waiting nearby, Lena explained the plan in quiet, urgent tones. We'll move quickly. No more hiding. If we want to find this artifact before the others, we'll need to trust each other. Zara glanced at Lena, then at Ethan, who had been listening quietly from a distance. He seemed calm, focused, as though he had already prepared for this moment. His ability to remain composed in the face of danger was something Zara found herself admiring more with each passing minute. "I've been tracking the signals," Ethan said, his voice calm but firm. "The artifact is not just an object. It's a key. Whoever controls it will control the flow of energy across multiple dimensions. That's why the Trogrians are after it." Zara's eyes widened. She had suspected that the artifact was more than it seemed. But the idea that it could control energy across dimensions, that was something entirely new. It was more powerful than any weapon she had ever seen. It's more dangerous than anything she had ever imagined. "We need to find it first," Lena said. "And we need to stop anyone else from getting their hands on it," Ethan nodded. "We move at night. We keep a low profile. The last thing we want is to draw attention," Zara agreed. She had spent her life learning to blend into the shadows, and now she was relying on that skill more than ever. She had to admit she had underestimated the humans. But now, she was beginning to understand just how much potential they had, and that terrified her. The next few days were a blur of careful planning and quiet movement. Zara, Lena, and Ethan worked together in silence, each of them focused on their part of the mission. Zara had never felt so connected to another group before. Despite their differences, despite her alien origins, she felt a strange sense of camaraderie with these humans. Ethan was a master of strategy. He moved with a quiet confidence, always thinking 2 steps ahead. He didn't just survive. He outsmarted his enemies, using the terrain to his advantage, and never rushing into a fight unless he had to. Lena, on the other hand, was a brilliant tactician. She had an unshakable resolve and an almost supernatural ability to stay calm under pressure. As the days passed, they followed the signals, picking up faint traces of the artifact's energy signature. Zara couldn't help but marvel at how humans, with all their flaws, had managed to build such advanced technology that could detect the artifact's presence, even across galaxies. "We're getting closer," Ethan said one evening, scanning the horizon with his high-tech binoculars. "The signals are more concentrated now." "It's just up ahead," Zara nodded, her mind racing. She had seen the Trogrians in action before. If they were closing in on the artifact, then there was no time to waste. They had to act quickly. "We need to move now," Lena said, her voice urgent, "before anyone else arrives." The 3 of them gathered their gear, prepared for what was about to come. As they set off into the dense forest, Zara's heart raced with anticipation. She had never been more certain of anything in her life. They were on the verge of finding something that could change the course of history. She was going to help protect it. They reached the location at dawn, just as the first light of day filtered through the trees. The area was quiet, eerily so. Zara could feel the weight of the silence pressing down on her, the sense that something was about to happen. They moved carefully, making sure not to alert anyone to their presence. Ethan signaled for them to stop as they approached a large rock formation. He crouched down, examining the ground before them. "This is it," he whispered. "The artifact is here." Zara felt a strange sensation as she stepped forward. It was as though the air around them had changed, as though something was calling to her, urging her to come closer. She glanced at Lena and Ethan, both of whom were scanning the area, their expressions serious. "We need to be careful," Lena warned, her eyes scanning the surroundings. "If the Trogrians are already here, we won't be able to hold them off for long." Suddenly, a noise broke the stillness of the morning, a faint rustling from the trees. Zara's heart skipped a beat as she turned toward the sound. Out of the shadows, a group of Trogrians appeared, their eyes glowing with malicious intent. Too late. One of the Trogrians sneered, its voice thick with arrogance. "The artifact is ours." Ethan's hand moved to his side, and he stepped forward, his eyes locked on the enemy. "Not if I have anything to say about it." Zara knew that the battle was about to begin. The fight for the artifact was here, and this time, humanity wouldn't back down.